shauri yako. Mimi siko kwa hizo maisha. Kiani unataka nitopoe siri? Nitopoe?
Siri gani?
Nitopoe.
Na si useme basi.
Wewe anatumia jumba ya wenyewe ya biashara kufanya biashara yako.
Mwenyewe anaenda hasara. Umetuaje ni jumba ya wenyewe?
Sababu si wewe analipa rent.
So what is your problem?
Wewe unatakiwa uulize
maswali. Do you know what I called through about that interview? Unajua nini nilienda through about that interview? Actually she was forcing me and then I refused it.
Ndio nakuuliza, mbona ukumwambia mwenye kazi kwamba huyu msichana umeleta ananisumbua?
Si wewe ndiye umeleta huyu msichana.
Na mbona ukumshtaki kwa mwenye kazi?
Mimi ndio usinifanye fool kwa sababu umeniweka mahali kuna temptations. Alafu nakoja.
Kwa hivyo kwa kuwa tempted.
Si kwa tempted lakini kuna temptations.
Umesema amekuweka kwa temptation. So you are tempted ndio ukafanya hivyo vitu.
I was almost there mheshimiwa. Sio kitu nimesema mheshimiwa.
Nick knows something and he has been hiding from me.
Hello, Nick. Hey, relax. I need to talk to you urgently.
That must be a very important phone call.
What clues or evidence does he have?
We need to find a way, otherwise we will all be in trouble.
There is nothing that incriminates anyone. What took you so long?
Hi, Ruth.
Hi. There's something you left behind.
I'm feeling like I'm being watched.
You agreed to meet Miss Ruth Muguna this evening.
When did I agree to that? Does she know you sent Blackie to me?
No. She can never know that.
Ya Shafi, Ya Rasul Allah, Ya Shaymadina.
Ni mambo gani ambayo sisi huwafunza wadogo zetu ili waweze kupata manufaa katika dunia na kesho akhera?
Ni maneno yenye kupandana, maneno yenye kuzidi, maneno ya ziada. Ni neno moja lakini ina uwingi wake, ina faida mingi ndani yake.
Good evening and welcome to Prime Edition. Tonight, we have a story that has very gory details of a man who dismembered the body of his wife. He was arraigned today in court. We have the gory details lined up for you. And indeed, President William Ruto talking about the Kazi Maju program and saying that the program has indeed borne fruits. And that conversation will also be part of what we'll be discussing with the Principal Secretary, State Department for Diaspora Affairs, Roslyn Njogu, who is already with us in studio. We will talk about that department and, of course, other emerging issues, including human trafficking. And we'll talk about that when we engage her. She's already with us in studio. You can start sending in your feedback. But first things first, here are tonight's highlights. President Ruto commits to ensure a united country, warns political leaders against dividing Kenyans along ethnic lines. Bizarre luggage. Man found with body parts arraigned in court.
We hereby suspend our strike for the next 21 days.
Reprieve. Clinical officers suspend strike for 21 days. Lucy Maura is our sign language interpreter. My name is John Jacob Curia. You're very much welcome to the broadcast. President William Ruto says he's committed to ensuring the country is united and that all Kenyans can enjoy development programs. The president, who was on his 4th day of his Western Kenya tour, said leaders should work at uniting and not dividing Kenyans on regional basis. He asked Kenyans to embrace leaders who unite them for the good of the country, as Simon Achola now reports.
Day 4 of his tour of the Western region, and President William Ruto laid bare what may have led to the parting ways with his former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua.
Si broad-based ni ya kuunganisha kila mtu. Ile watu ya ukabila, ile watu ya shares, ile watu ya mitego, ile watu ya ukora, ile watu walishindwa na kazi, those guys who are incompetent, wale ambao ni tribalists, wale wanaendeshwa na ukabila, hawana nafasi katika taifa letu la Kenya. Kenya is a place where all people of Kenya are equal.
The president said he remains committed to ensuring one indivisible country devoid of tribal balkanization.
Si mnajua sisi wote tulishindana hapo nyuma, si ndio? Lakini tumeamua, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga na mimi na viongozi wengine wengi, tumekubaliana hatuna haja na siasa ya ugomvi na chuki na ukabila. Sisi tuungane sisi wote ili tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba tunasuluhisha matatizo ya wananchi.
Lazima tuwe na umoja wa taifa. Tushikamane sisi zote. Kusiwe na ubaguzi wa kikabila, kusiwe na ubaguzi wa dini, kusiwe na ubaguzi wa aina yoyote ile.
Leaders accompanying the president hit out at the former deputy president.
Rais kura yake ya kwanza AU ape baba Raila Amolo Odinga. Ampatie na akusanye Afrika nzima, mzee aende AUC, si ndio? Awe kiongozi wa Afrika nzima.
Makofi mazuri.
The president spoke as he continued with his development tour of the Western region. The president launched a multi-billion market in Luanda, commissioned phase 2 of the multi-billion irrigation scheme in Bunyala, Busia County, and a level 4 hospital in Huisero.
Na sisi wakati ule ulisema tulikuwa tunavaa ile kifuria tunapika kengele. Ilikuwa kwa sababu ya hawa. Kwa sababu sisi tunaweza kuishi maisha yetu unajua. Tulikuwa, lakini kwa sababu sasa umekuja hapa, tuko pamoja kwa mambo yote. Si ndio? Tuko pamoja sasa. Tusaidiane. Na mkasaa mchele mwingi, nataka muingie kwa mashirika ambao serikali pia itamsaidia kufanya value addition.
President Ruto will continue with his tour of the Western region on Thursday in Busia, Bungoma, and Vihiga counties. Achala Simon, Prime Edition, Busia County.
Sawa sawa. Meantime, the president says the Kazi Maju initiative, a program designed by his administration to secure more jobs for Kenyans through overseas labor mobility, is yielding positive results. President Ruto, who spoke in Busia, noted that numerous agreements signed between his government and foreign nations have enabled many unemployed young Kenyans to access job opportunities.
You can see it's already indicated irrigation.
President William Ruto on Wednesday morning was where he announced that the Kenyan government was investing 130 million shillings to extend the dike in Budalangi to address the lack of backflow and restore arable agricultural land.
Ale tumeweka gates, tumetengeneza intake, imetuchukua karibu shilingi bilioni 4 kukamilisha ile phase 1. Lakini sasa hii phase 2 ni 2.9 billion na tuko na hiyo pesa, na sasa tutakamilisha hii mradi kwa sababu tunataka kuhakikisha ya kwamba tunazalisha chakula ya kutosha Kenya. Tuondoe aibu ya njaa. Ama namna gani jameni? Simu maona kuna watu huko Nairobi wananivalia kofia nini sufuria kwa kichwa, hatu wanatafuta maneno ya chakula.
The president saying the project will restore and safeguard access to vital institutions and infrastructure for household currently at the risk of displacement.
Mimi nawauliza watu wa Budalangi jameni, watu wa Bunyala, hii irrigation scheme yetu hapa ambaye inaunganisha Busia na Siaya. Hii program vile tumekamilisha mpango ambayo tulikuwa naye kule Mwea, tukaongeza another 20,000 acres of rice production in Mwea. Sasa tunataka kuongeza another 20,000 acres of rice production in Bunyala, kati ya Busia na hapa Siaya.
During the tour, the president highlighted gains made by Overseas Employment Program of the Youth and a Kazi Maju program. The head of state noted that agreements between Kenya and other foreign nations have been transformative, as they have helped to formalize cooperation on labor mobility.
Hii inchi hatutaki inchi ya watu wengine kujivunia na wengine kuvumilia. Sisi wote tunataka tutembee kwa pamoja.
At the same time, Ruto dismissed critics on his labor mobility agenda, urging Kenyans to embrace the initiative and apply for employment in countries that have opened their doors to the Kenyan workforce. Sentiments echoed by leaders accompanying him, among them the deputy president.
Right. Time for us now to get into a conversation. And Roslyn Jogu is the Principal Secretary, State Department for Diaspora Affairs. We'll talk a bit about that Kazi Maju by the President. But first of all, PS, karibu sana.
Asante sana. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
Doing good. Thank you so much for inviting me to have a conversation about this really, really important
Absolutely. We'll talk about the human trafficking subject in a bit.
Yeah.
But regarding, because I'm sure your State Department is very much involved in the negotiations going around the Kazi Maju program.
Yeah.
How would you rate its success? The President says it is doing fantastic.
It is. It has been a great success. And remember that we began this process by creating the Global Labour Market Strategy that basically brings together government's response to this idea of unemployment. And we are looking to other markets abroad where our fantastic talent can find opportunities. And so we came together as a number of state departments, State Department for Diaspora Affairs and the State Department for Labour and Skills Development led this project. But of course you have in there foreign affairs, you've got immigration, you've got TVET, youth and so on. And what we did was really structure how we are going to go about protecting our citizens when they go out there, how we're going to go about facilitating them to take up their rightful place in the global labor market, how we would create policy to structure this, as well as regulation for the protection. It's been hugely successful. In the last 2 years alone, over 100 and about 180 now. No, it's about 180,000 people in the last 1 year have found opportunities and left for these jobs abroad. So our diaspora is growing, and people are finding opportunities. One of the ways you know that the project is working is just looking at the remittance numbers, for example, that were just released by the CBK in the last few days.
FDIs?
Remittances, diaspora remittances. And that number is now up to $4.9 billion in the last year. That is a huge number. And it's a jump from $4.18 US last year. Okay, so something like $0.7 US extra has been sent home by Kenyans living abroad. That is the single largest source of forex. It is higher than what we get from coffee, from tea, from tourism, from horticulture. So quite simply, growing a diaspora means that they can continue to support their families back home. And that is what we see in that story of the diaspora remittance. Yes.
The big question is sometimes, you were still the State Department, you are still at the State Department for Diaspora Affairs, when a press release was issued regarding jobs available in Canada. And sometimes Kenyans, are running around checking, fact-checking the numbers. I think you've seen some doubts amongst Kenyans regarding these opportunities. So the question is, the jobs announced, are they available?
So which jobs are you speaking about?
I'm talking about when Alfred Mutua was actually the Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Minister, yes.
You remember sometime being fact-checked by the Embassy for Canada.
So yes, and let me be clear. Yes, I was the PS for Diaspora Affairs. I have been the only one
Actually, yeah.
since the State Department was set up. And then Waziri Mutua as my boss was in the process of beginning to negotiate opportunities with Canada. And these negotiations tend to take quite some time, right? So there is some back and forth, there is conversations, there is saying, signaling that we're going to be able to open up our country for your people to come and work and so on and so forth. And while you might say that there is a lot of sometimes mistrust or sometimes, what's the word now, hesitancy by Kenyans to take these things seriously, a big part of that has been because of crooks in the space. You will hear that we will say we have now negotiated and signed an agreement with Germany, for example. Kenyans will take a wait-and-see attitude, which is what we have seen over the years. They will take a wait-and-see attitude. They want to see nikina nani wameenda Ujerumani, and they start, especially Kenyans on social media, and just sort of begin to observe. But Kenyans are moving. The people who are looking for the opportunities and who've prepared for these opportunities are moving and are already taking up these jobs and so on. So we see that. The other reason why we see a bit of hesitancy is because the space has also been crowded very often by people masquerading as agents who are not agents, so fraudsters, scam artists, as well as human traffickers, and we're going to speak about that in a little bit. And so what you've seen then is people a little bit concerned, unwilling to jump in, because they're like, how do I know that you're not just going to take my 300,000 shillings and I never hear from you again? But also there's the assumption, and a lot of these things are really going on in our minds. There's the assumption that you need to know somebody to get a job abroad. You need to come with a brown envelope to a certain office somewhere and see somebody, and that is not the case. So you see these things, or I hear this one very often, PS, can you put me on the list for Germany? There isn't a list. I'm not maintaining a list for people to go to Germany. So we've opened up these markets, and we want people to be able to take up these opportunities, but they have to compete. In the same way, if I am looking to take up a job here at KBC, I can't come and start saying, can you put me on the list? I must apply. I must actually put myself out there. So the concerns that we see from Kenyans, I think, really come from a place of having, over many years, not been supported well to take up these opportunities and to be facilitated to enter this space, but also because of the scam artists and the con artists that have entered the space that have made everybody very afraid.
It's an abundance of caution.
Yes, that is the word. They are exuding or showing an abundance of caution.
All right.
Yes.
Let's talk about human trafficking.
Yes.
But you have issued an alert over Malaysia. And,
over Thailand, over and over again. Human trafficking is particularly concerning for us now because as we roll out Kazi Maju and as Kenyans, hundreds of thousands of Kenyans are taking up opportunities in good jobs abroad, the scam artists that I spoke about and the rogue agents or fraudsters masquerading as agents are changing tact. So we come and say we have these jobs in Qatar, all right? What immediately emerges is a human trafficking ring under that basically comes and advertises jobs available abroad, no agent required, a lot of it happens.
It is government that has said these opportunities are available.
Yes.
And then a cartel forms around.
Other people will usually come and say that jobs are available. We have jobs in Thailand, we have jobs in Malaysia, we have jobs in all of these places, usually in Southeast Asia. And then what will happen is that people will and they will operate differently. So the people who are advertising jobs in Canada, for example, will usually demand a lot of money from people. And those fraudsters will demand 1 million shillings. I know people who have been conned millions of shillings. I know people who have been conned hundreds of thousands of shillings. They will demand that kind of money. They will take it from you. They will never supply a job. Okay, so we have several cases currently being investigated by the DCI. Unfortunately, we also have people who get conned and never talk about it because they're a bit ashamed about the fact that they lost this money. So, and that just encourages the fraudsters to continue going on. So that's one part of the problem. The one that is more concerning to me, even though this one is very serious, is a human trafficking angle. We come and say, jobs available in Thailand, we are looking for IT professionals, we are looking for translators, you need to have, be able to speak Mandarin, or you need to have an IT degree and that kind of thing. And you actually do an interview. You do an interview, you do a Zoom interview, and they process paperwork. They give you an offer, you sign it, and you go to the Thai embassy and you get a visa, a visitor's visa, a tourist visa, never a work permit. Okay, and then you go and you arrive in Bangkok, and they pick you up from the airport, and they drive you and you cross the border to Myanmar. And once you cross the border to Myanmar, you find out that there isn't a job that you were expecting.
Oh, Lord.
What you are now is a prisoner, a pseudo-slave who must perform online scams. We have had hundreds of Kenyans fall for this. In the last 2 years alone, we have rescued about 150 Kenyans from these scam compounds.
150?
In Myanmar, yes. 150 Kenyans. We've rescued them where you are. So the scam goes this way. You are now required, you applied for an IT job, great. You need to set up several online Facebook accounts and other social media accounts. You need to pose as a beautiful girl, and they will supply you with photographs of usually white women. And then you need to reach out to various men around the world and ask them for money and get them to send you money. If you are not productive, they starve you, they beat you up, they electrocute you. It is horrible. You cannot leave.
These people have networks in Kenya, so much so that...
They have networks everywhere. So if you hear, and I hope this message gets out as clearly as possible, because we have spoken about it with our Ambassador Kiptines has done everything he possibly can. This is our ambassador in Thailand. We have spoken to everybody, but I still have every day Kenyans leaving to go to Thailand for a job. I want to make the following very clear. There are no jobs in Thailand, okay? And if you're applying for a job and someone is telling you, come for a job in Thailand, it is most likely a scam. It is not in Thailand. You're going to be crossed over to Myanmar, which is a different country, which has had a lot of tumultuous times, as you might know. And the areas where these scam compounds are set up are in places where government doesn't have very good control. So the mafia have built these scam compounds.
I want us to get this out of the way.
Yes.
What is happening in Myanmar is sexual exploitation.
No. So you have sexual exploitation in certain places, including Kenyan, East African women that we are aware of who are trafficked now into Thailand for sexual exploitation in other parts of Southeast Asia. We've seen that in Malaysia. We go and find a beautiful woman in the market and we tell her, or someone usually in a salon, she's working in the salon or she's working in a boutique, and we'll tell her, would you like to do this job somewhere else? Ungependa kufanya kazi huko Diaspora? That is a recruiter. And I use recruiter in quotes because that is not a recruiter, that's an agent for the traffickers. And they organize everything. Please note this girl is not living in Nairobi necessarily, she's probably living very far. She is brought to Nairobi, very quickly gets her passport, her visa, and out of the country. As soon as she gets into these countries, and please note, I'm saying this with a lot of experience. I have met these women in these countries. I have interviewed them. I have had to rescue them.
150 of them so far.
We have rescued 150. I've of course not have had to interview all of them, but I've met with a number of these women and spoken with them about their experiences. You would not wish this on your worst enemy. Yeah. You arrive in this country, you genuinely believe you're going to work in a spa, and what you're immediately told is, okay, so you've arrived, give me your passport so I can change this from a visitor's visa to a work permit, and as soon as you hand it over, the person who has brought you there says, okay, so the job actually here is commercial sex work.
Oh my God. Let's take a small breather. We'll come back, absorb that a bit, and then come back. Don't go too far. We're coming back with PS Rosalind Job.
Shilingi 1000. Toka kwa hiyo sanduku. Stoki. Kizongwe mkuli. Rudisha hiyo pesa kwa sanduku namba 10.
Ongeza ifike 50.
Kwa nini?
Anataka ukule popcorn ukitizama runinga, sawa?
100,000 Kenya shillings. Inch TV, 1,000 Kenya shillings. Yes.
يا شافي يا رسول الله يا شمالنا.
Ni mambo gani ambayo sisi huwafunza wadogo zetu ili waweze kupata manufaa katika dunia na kesho akhera?
Ni maneno yenye kupandana, maneno yenye kuzidi, maneno ya ziada. Ni neno moja lakini ina uwingi wake, ina faida mingi ndani yake.
Welcome back. We're having a rather quite interesting yet sad conversation regarding what is ongoing in Thailand. Of course, Kenyans living, but then what awaits them is something else. And P.S., we were talking about sexual exploitation, which is where I want us to go. But probably before we talk about sexual exploitation, because we've talked about Thailand.
Yeah.
Is it the only place in Asia that has recorded some of these vices?
Right. So remember again, Thailand is an entry point, right? So people will ideally enter through Thailand. They might stay and be trafficked in Thailand, but they're more likely to be trafficked into Myanmar, into Laos, PDR, into Vietnam, into the neighboring countries. But as I was saying to you, there's about 3 different kinds of problems that we have. You have the sexual trafficking, right? People are being trafficked for sexual services. You have people who are being trafficked for what we're now calling these scam compounds, right? Like you go in there and you have to do commit IT fraud. And then you have the one that we're more aware of, which is women moving to, particularly some countries in the Middle East, as domestic workers, and then they end up not being treated in the way that they're supposed to be treated according to the contract, according to agreements that we might have, according to international law and so on. So the sex trafficking rings will usually lure women with opportunities for jobs, to work in spas, to work in beauty salons, to work in hospitality, and that kind of thing. And once you arrive in this country, then what you're going to be told, and the ones I've spoken to, it's been very heartbreaking. You arrive on that day, they take your passport, and they immediately tell you, well, actually, the job that we were promising you, you need to go on the street immediately. And there are women who've had to go onto the street the very day they arrive and sell their body so that they can pay the madam who brought them. And they will do that for months. What saddens me is that a lot of these women are really naive, haven't been exposed, do not know that there is A, an embassy in this country, or B, they do not know that even if someone holds my passport, I can still go home. I don't need that passport to go home. I can go to the embassy and get an emergency travel document and go home.
Back home?
Yes. If you lose your passport tomorrow in pick a country, in Ghana, you go to our embassy in go to our High Commission in Ghana, and we will issue you an emergency travel document. So it's not, you're not bound. But we've managed to convince these women that they are bound. So there is that ring. It is horrible. We've been rescuing women. We've brought in some women, I think as late as yesterday or 2 days ago, from India and so on, who've been trafficked on that path, sexual trafficking. The second one is these scam compounds that I'm telling you. The victims of these scams are not your usual victims. They don't fit the perfect victimology that we usually think about. They're not vulnerable women. These are usually people with a degree in IT. So we're talking about someone with a BSc in IT, a computer science degree, and so on, because that is the criterion for getting the job. Someone who probably has 2 languages, so who speaks Mandarin or French or something like this. Sometimes somebody who has already worked in the diaspora or gone to school in the diaspora. Yeah. So this person does not usually think of themselves as a victim, right? Because you're an educated person, so you don't usually think of yourself as a victim. But this person is currently unemployed, so they apply for this opportunity, and everything appears legit up to the point where they cross the border with you, because they come and pick you up from the airport. They cross the border with you through an entry point called Mysot between Myanmar and Thailand. And they cross the border with you, and at that point, you are in the hands of gangsters. I have horrible pictures on my phone that have been sent to me by our ambassador of people who have been burned with electric whips, who've been beaten severely. We have lost one woman because they tried to operate on her and she died. And they will tell you, if you want to leave, if you really don't want to do this scamming business, then pay us. They'll give you an exorbitant amount of money, they will beat you, they will starve you, they will electrocute you, or they will tell you, give us one of your kidneys.
My Lord. Yes.
So they will do organ harvesting. I want to be very, very clear with you. If you hear of a job opportunity abroad, check with us. We will tell you whether that job exists or not.
That's what I want you to explain to us in 1 minute, because we have to end up. What do I need to do if I hear an opportunity?
If you hear an opportunity, please get in touch with the State Department for Diaspora Affairs, and I will give you our details shortly, and you can run them.
Okay.
You can drop us an email at kazimaju at kazimaju@diaspora.go.ke. Okay?
At diaspora.go.ke.
Yeah, kazimaju@diaspora.go.ke. And send us the details of that job. We have contacts with all of our embassies. We'll be able to tell you, does that teaching job in Thailand exist? Amanistoriza Jaba. We're going to be able to tell you whether that opportunity actually exists or not. And I'll share with you the number shortly. What is most unfortunate about this is that there are opportunities out there, and many people are taking up good job opportunities. But you've got to use the right path. The right path is, if you're looking for an opportunity, find a legit licensed recruitment agency. You will find that information on the National Employment Authority website, on the NEA website. Then you know that I'm dealing with a company called XYZ. These are their offices, so that if things go south, we know where to come for them. And we usually will come for people who go rogue. But also check with us. We are at Old Mutual Tower on the ground floor, no, on the first floor.
On the first floor.
That is where the Kazimaju offices are. That is where the State Department for Diaspora Affairs, Diaspora Jobs office is. That's where the Diaspora Placement Agency is. So come there and just ask us, is this job legit? Before you've parted with your money, or before you've had to part with your life. Yeah?
The number?
Oh, let me give you the number very, very quickly. I'll give it to you. We have we have several of these, and I'm trying to make sure that the one I'm giving you is the one that goes directly to the people. It's +25420
+25420
787 6000 787 6000 or 011 475 7002 011 475 7002.
And I think we'll run this on the scrolls.
Kindly, if you would do that. This will save lives. Let me say this final thing.
Yes.
That human trafficking is a problem of the whole world, and we all have to do our part. And for anybody who wants to migrate abroad to take up these opportunities in the hundreds of thousands that I spoke about, please do it safely. Use a licensed recruitment agent. Come to the Diaspora Placement Agency at the State Department for Diaspora Affairs. We will tell you what opportunities are available. And if you're in doubt, call us. We will tell you. We have had an opportunity to stop people at the airport when they are leaving to go into very dark places. So come to us. We will give you the right information.
Wow, Rosalind, I mean, this was educative.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Really educated. And we thank you very much for sparing your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really important.
Absolutely. And we thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
PS Rosalind Jogu, in charge of the State Department for Diaspora Affairs. Take home. There are no jobs in Thailand. You're taking a breather. Coming back shortly.
Asante.
Shilingi 1000. Toka kwa hiyo sanduku. Stoki. Kizongwe mkuli. Rudisha hiyo pesa kwa sanduku namba 10.
Ongeza ifike 50.
Kwa nini?
Nataka ukule popcorn ukitizama runinga, sawa? 100,000 Kenya shillings! Inch TV! 1,000 Kenya shillings! Yes!
I know what you and Dad have been up to. If you need help, blink twice. Ama nikatumia adui yake. Yani wataka kuwa kama mimi, lisilo na budi ubidi.
Just find out nani anamfiti na hii story.
I could literally feel your thoughts from the gate.
What are you doing here? Kuna mtu amekufa hapa. Je, na hiyo mdomo yake kubwa?
Jabu. I don't know what is happening in this family, but I don't want to be part of it.
Anajua.
Can take you somewhere quiet. Taki mambo yongelewe kwa hii nyumbangu tena.
Ni sawa.
And what is it exactly they are hiding from you?
You're watching the Prime Edition. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, will detain for 21 days a suspect who was arrested while allegedly carrying a luggage containing the dismembered body parts of his wife in Huruma, Nairobi, pending further probe. The DCI officers who were before the Nairobi Magistrate Court argued that if John Chama Wambua is released, is likely to interfere with investigations since they are yet to recover other missing body parts of the victim, the murder weapon, as well as record statements from witnesses.
Imagine meeting with a young man carrying body parts of a human being in a sack like luggage. Well, these were the sceneries that police officers found during their patrol on Tuesday in Huruma Estate, Nairobi. Upon interrogating the suspect, preliminary investigation found that John Kiama Wambua quarreled with his wife in their house in the area before it turned tragic. And on Wednesday, the DCI officers sought orders to hold the suspect for 21 days, which the court granted.
A postmortem report is yet to be conducted. The same body is still lacking other body parts which are yet to be recovered. We are yet to conduct a mental assessment in the respondents.
The court was informed that after the arrest and interrogation, the suspect led the officers to his residence, where a search was conducted and the head with eyes got out and other body parts were found. Milimani Trial Magistrate Gilbert Shiko allowed the application by the DC officers from Starehe Sub-County to enable them to recover the other body parts that are still missing.
Your Honor, the incident is in the public domain and the applicant is apprehensive that if released, the members of the public might lynch him due to the nature of the offenses.
The court has ordered Wambua be remanded until 17th of February when the case will be mentioned. Ruth Wamboi for Prime Edition.
In a section of Inua Jamii Cash Transfer Program, beneficiaries in Murang'a County have decried the inefficiencies caused by the shift from accessing the funds through commercial banks to mobile banking. Beneficiaries from Murang'a and Marsabit counties that were earmarked for a pilot program say the process has hitches that should be addressed before a countrywide rollout by the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection. John Kahiro has the report.
By the government to shift access to Inua Jamii Cash Transfer Program from the 6 commercial banks to mobile banking through M-Pesa appears to be running into headwinds, with beneficiaries alleging inefficiencies. In Murang'a County, one of the counties from which the program is being piloted, beneficiaries claim the transition has been hit by technology glitches, locking them from accessing the funds. A visit to the Telefonica Safaricom shop in Murang'a town, where beneficiaries with such challenges are being referred, paints a grim picture of frustrated yet needy Kenyans. For Esther Wanjiku, a 4-day journey to the facility in an attempt to enroll her 96-year-old mother from Gadera village in Maragua constituency has been nothing short of an uphill task.
Ile mashida tumepitia hivi, tukapitia Maragua, na sio leo, hata juzi bado nilikuwa huko na nikakuwa huko. Sasa leo ndio wameniambia ati kitambulisho yake inakata, nikuje huku Murang'a. Mpaka saa hii saa 3 hatujahudumiwa.
Yet all the efforts have so far proven futile.
Nimlipie gari mahali nimemtoa, alafu kufika mahali atafika, nitambeba na mgongo au tutafuta mtu mwingine anisaidie, nimpeleke na huko chini kabisa, hawezi kujireta.
A similar frustrating tale is shared by Wanjiru Chege from Mathioya constituency, who tearfully narrates the endless attempts to enroll her grandmother to the program, with the system rejecting her identification card number. And in the same facility, 86-year-old David Mugo, who braced the hot sun from Mukango village in Kiharu to Murang'a town for assistance, is on the verge of giving up after his ID was severally rejected by the system.
Ate mimi nilishaliwa 1922 na mimi najua kawaida yangu nilishaliwa 1942 na mimi nilikuwa nashukua pesa na hiyo kipande yangu tangu wakati pesa hii ilianza kupeanwa. Kwa nini leo wanagausha miaka yangu?
Though frustrated by the process, the beneficiaries have called on the government to urgently address the technical hitches.
Sasa sina kibarua naweza kuandikwa na mtu ambavyo nikamaliza ambavyo ivuti ya shilingi 100 na bado siku hizo zote mimi na bado natumia senti ya kuja na kurudi. Hata jaa imetuzidi. Maanake tunakuja hapa hata bibi yangu. Zote tukija hapa sasa hakuna hata nyumbani, tunawasha nyumbani hivi, tukitoka hapo tunakula pangalao kachai. Haya tulikuja hapa, ukija leo, ukija kesho, unaambiwa bado.
The government will fully roll out the transition by the end of January 2025. John Kahiro, Prime Edition.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, is investigating 3 stations under the judiciary which have been flagged as hotspots for bribe collection. EACC Chairperson Dr. David Oginde says the investigations emanate from concerns raised by the Chief Justice Martha Koome, who called for a crackdown on errant judicial officers perpetrating the subversive acts. The Judicial Service Commission has so far received 5 petitions against judges alleged to have engaged in corruption in the year 2025.
Barely days after the Judicial Service Commission JSC announced the commencement of investigations against judges, magistrates and staffers at the judiciary based on petitions filed by members of the public. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission EACC has now revealed that they are zeroing in on judicial officers engaging in corruption.
We had a meeting with the Chief Justice, and in that meeting she raised the concern that she's receiving reports that some of her officers are taking bribes and therefore subverting justice.
According to the anti-graft body chair, Dr. David Oginde, the commission recently handed over a report to Chief Justice Martha Koome exposing the rot in the stations that are now under the radar of EACC sleuths.
There are 3 stations that she had received reports that were seemingly, allegedly, are notorious for taking, where people are taking bribes.
Oginde says the hallmark of the ongoing investigations will be the arraignment of implicated judicial officers.
The ball is now on the Judicial Service Commission Court as and when they receive this particular report from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in regards to individuals within the judicial system who are engaging in the vice and render their verdict.
Elsewhere, EACC will be granted powers to investigate bank accounts, mobile money accounts, or call data records if a new bill is passed. The Anti-Corruption Laws Amendment Bill 2025, sponsored by the Attorney General Dorcas Oduor, seeks to amend the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act to aid investigations. The Commission can also request the production of suspects' account opening documents, transaction documents, bankers' books, or any information relevant to the investigations. This even as the Commission oversaw the launch of the National Integrity Academy Strategic Plan 2024-2028, meant to complement other initiatives undertaken by the Commission.
The unveiling of this strategic plan represents not just the culmination of months of diligent effort, but also the beginning of a transformative journey towards a more transparent and a just nation.
Abdiaziz Hashim for Prime Edition.
There's some good news here. The Kenya Union of Clinical Officers has suspended its strike for 21 days in 43 counties, starting Monday next week. The union officials say the suspension will pave way for negotiations with the government in a bid to break the existing deadlock. Meanwhile, the country has replenished the critical childhood vaccines to address a shortage witnessed in recent weeks. 2.3 million doses of BCG and 7 million doses of measles rubella vaccines arrived in the country on Tuesday.
On the second day of the national strike by the clinical workers that had threatened to paralyze the provision of medical care in hospitals, the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers has suspended for 21 days a strike that started on the 20th of January 2025.
We hereby suspend our strike for the next 21 days. And I must clarify that 21 days begin Monday, because Monday will be the first day when the team will be meeting.
Sisi hatujamaliza mgomo, tumesitisha kwa wiki 3. Na tuko na nguvu na tuko na uwezo wa kurejea kwa mgomo. Tunausitisha ndio tuweze kukua na maongezi kama vile serikali ama waajiri wetu wameweza wakatuuliza. Wasipotimiza haya kwa siku 21 tutakuwa tunarejea kwa mgomo.
The strike, however, will remain active in Lamu, Kwale, Vihiga and Uasin Gishu counties.
Solidarity forever.
Doctors in Siaya today, in the meantime, have begun a strike, accusing the county government of failure to honor a collective bargaining agreement signed with the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union.
Our key grievances are promotion and redesignation, lack of health insurance, and severe shortage of personnel that has placed an enormous strain on our existing workforce.
Meanwhile, the government has replenished critical childhood vaccine stock, ending weeks of uncertainty for infant mothers.
The country has been grappling with a shortage of the BCG vaccine, which is supposed to prevent us from getting tuberculosis. And we are disclosed that before the end of the month, we are supposed to receive 2.3 million doses of the vaccine. I want to affirm that we received the vaccines the day before yesterday in our Kitengela stores, and distribution of the vaccines have commenced to the 9 regional depots.
Nairobi County received 450,000 doses of the BCG vaccine, Kisumu 300,000 doses, Kakamega 276,000 doses, Nakuru 264,000 doses, Mombasa 120,000 doses, Meru 90,000 doses, Nyeri 90,000 doses, Garissa 120,000 doses, and Eldoret 290,000 doses.
We have kept a stock of 234,000 doses at the national level to be able to maintain the buffer stock. In terms of logistics, usually we are supposed to keep 6 months worth of stock.
The government has in the meantime refuted claims that the Social Health Authority is discriminating against patients who are not civil servants.
We have a separate scheme for civil servants, but
The benefit I've talked about is available to all Kenyans who are registered under SHA.
We are not saying we are separating civil servants and the rest, but there was already an existing scheme that was for civil servants. And what is being done is transition of the same.
So far, over 18.2 million people have registered under SHA, with principal members urged to register their dependents. Nancy Okware, Prime Edition.
Kenyans in the meantime have been challenged to embrace the diverse cultures and foster cultural heritage. Speaking during the celebration of a spring festival, a Chinese traditional way of celebrating the new year, Chinese ambassador to Kenya, Guo Hiyan, emphasized the importance of living in harmony. She said the festival marks the celebration of life and hope. The official celebration will take place on the 29th of January, according to the traditional lunisolar Chinese calendar.
At the United Nations offices, tens of members of the Chinese and Kenyan community, dignitaries and cultural enthusiasts drawn from different parts of the world convened for the Chinese Spring Festival, an event that marks the start of the Chinese New Year. This year's Spring Festival falls on the 29th January. Guests enjoyed a colorful array of activities, including the dragon dance, acrobatics, and kung fu, among others. Speaking during the event, Chinese ambassador to Kenya, Guo Hiyan, stated the importance of living in peace and harmony. The Spring Festival is not only a treasure of Chinese culture, but also offers inspiration for tackling global challenges.
Kenya and China have long, deep-rooted friendship, and this is an opportunity to also exchange the cultural, issues that we have between ourselves and them.
She added that the festival has fostered cultural ties as it is celebrated globally. The event was on 4th December 2023, inscribed on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity by UNESCO. It reflects people's desire for peace and harmony of the Chinese people.
That this lunar year of the wood snake bring us all on common wisdom and discernment to manage the myriad challenges we face as a race today.
A section of the participants urged Kenyans to embrace their culture and foster cultural heritage.
Also, as Kenyans, we have different cultures and different beliefs, so it's good for us to embrace also our cultures.
Kasi Chanamasha, Prime Edition.
And Education Cabinet Secretary Dr. Julius Ogamba has challenged the newly inaugurated Moi University Council to turn around the fortunes of a university that was near collapse. The Cabinet Secretary says the government is determined to restore the institution of higher learning to its former glory. He was speaking Wednesday during the inauguration of the new University Council, to be chaired by Professor Noah Midamba.
In Eldoret, Education CS Julius Ogamba inaugurating the new Moi University Council appointed last week, tasked with the responsibility of saving the institution from collapse. Ogamba says the changes at the university were part of a broader strategy by government to restore order and normalcy in the operations of the university, a task he acknowledges will not be a walk in the park.
We are not going to let any of our universities to go down. And we are beginning with Moi. We are next moving to Tuk in Nairobi, just to ensure that we bring a lot of hygiene in this sector, and each and every one of us does their role or plays their role to ensure that these many issues that are facing the universities are brought to an end, to ensure that the universities then can go back and do their main mandate.
The government, according to the CS, will oversight the management of public universities with the intention of dealing with laxity. Meanwhile, CS Ogamba has disclosed that the government is in the process of streamlining the new university funding model, which the High Court declared unconstitutional last year.
We've taken into account the many suggestions from the public, and we'll be working on that model to ensure that the next cohort comes in with a model that fits the purpose, so that whatever challenges that were there with MTI, we are looking at it and we are cleaning it up.
Joseph Wahungu for Prime Edition.
All right, before we switch to business, The Office of the President has clarified that no jobs will be lost and no state corporations functions will be scrapped during the restructuring of state corporations as approved by the Cabinet on Tuesday. In a statement, the State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed said the affected employees will be absorbed into the public service. Following a Cabinet approval, 9 state corporations will be dissolved and 42 others will be overlapping, with overlapping mandates will be merged. But the assurance by the Office of the President is that no staff from this affected state corporations will lose their jobs. That statement on your screen is from Hussein Mohammed, the State House spokesperson. Well, time for us now to switch over to business. Betty Kiptum is with us and said, Betty, how are you?
I'm very fine. Thank you very much, Kyoria, for, of course, that very telling interview about the trafficking that is happening in Thailand. We hope that that is sorted out. Now, time for the business news. As you heard, my name is Betty Kiptum. Kenya's economy is projected to expand 4.9% this year, fueled by a resilient services sector and favorable weather that will power the agriculture sector. This is according to the Institute of Public Finance CEO James Muraguri, who, however, says politics, credit access to the private sector and intensity of rains are the likely key risks to economic expansion.
The National Treasury has projected the economy to expand 5.3% this year. However, the Institute of Public Finance is predicting a slower growth rate of 4.9%, and this is why.
Towards the end of 2024, many regions did not receive adequate rainfall. So if we fail to harvest adequately, this will feed into 2025, where food prices are likely to start shooting. We expect that the economy will have a stagnation or even a slowdown, despite us experiencing a decline in inflation.
We still can't find what would have fundamentally changed to allow for 5.3 growth. It's a very ambitious target with very ambitious tax correction targets.
One could also argue there are some sectors where people are realizing good growth, like the financial sector. Look at the banking sector, it's doing well. Look at the agricultural sector, we had a bamba harvest last year, and also some areas where you could say there is positivity.
He is concerned about lower credit to the private sector in recent months as banks remain resistant to reduce lending rates despite a drop in the benchmark lending rate and lower disposable income in households.
Need for much more to be done from a monetary policy perspective, and especially with regards, for example, to cash reserve ratio by central bank. While that could be the last resort that the central bank has, we need to start easing off from 4.3% to something close to 2.5%, with provision that the resources available, the banks could be directed and guided and working within their risk profiles.
The rate of inflation has remained lower over the last 1 year, and Muraguri says it is a signal for subdued demand that could be stimulated through government incentives to both households and businesses.
We should be exploring other options. And if we can refer to our notes, what did we do during the COVID period? We can have fiscal stimulus, that is targeting our private sector.
He is calling for implementation of reforms that will widen the tax base.
Now, a 271 million shillings crop research facility has been established at the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization, Kiboko, in Makueni County to serve as a center for crop improvement and capacity building in sub-Saharan Africa. The facility by the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center in partnership with KALRO will boost capacity to address challenges faced by smallholder farmers such as climate change, pest outbreaks and soil degradation.
The Kiboko Research Station has long been a hub for maize breeding in Eastern Africa, contributing to the development of drought-tolerant and pest-resistant maize varieties. The facility has released 3 tolerant maize hybrids, benefiting farmers in Kenya, Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Sudan, and Ghana. Following the facelift, the research center will aid in furthering research on new and improved crop varieties that are climate resilient, promoting sustainable agriculture.
Some of the beans, bosho, they are called nyota. This nyota, value addition, it brings up many byproducts that can be sold by our youth, and they can do it in village centers. We want to encourage cottage industries all over the country, and Karo is capable and able to do all that.
Additionally, the premises will also reduce intensive manual labor through mechanization of breeding operations, offering better storage of valuable crop germplasm, and improving amenities to researchers as well as other staff working at the station.
The infrastructure here was almost established in 1980s and have served the purpose but required a major upgradation. And that major upgradation has been brought today with the inauguration of this Calro Summit Crops Research Facility.
Among the improvements made include an advanced seed processing and storage facilities.
This is indeed a pride. It's a very proud moment for all of us that this station has now developed into a center of excellence for crop improvement across multiple crops, and would serve surely as a training hub not only for future generations of scientists, but also will inspire young students, young Kenyans, into taking up agricultural research as their profession.
Ndutamo Kami for Prime Edition.
Of the Central Bank of Kenya have since June last year been reducing the benchmark lending rate during their biannual meeting, lowering it by 175 basis points over the period. The lower lending rate is expected to stimulate increased lending to the private sector. This could make money markets a good avenue for the short-term investors.
Whatever else is there, we still have to think about how do you also diversify across different asset categories and jurisdictions and geographies, so that you manage certain pitfalls that may come. Okay, so because you cannot you don't put eggs in one basket.
Bonds and the stock market also offer good long-term investment options.
Positive on our Kenya bond market. As I mentioned earlier, the yields are coming off. That's giving some interesting thing around the clients who have already invested, or foreign clients who have already invested, because the valuation for the bond portfolios are coming up.
We use the opportunity while we can to lock in those yields for much longer through bonds, through income assets, or equity markets, which are typically a bit more volatile, but cash is the one which may be most detrimental to preserving wealth ahead of inflation.
The market yield for global bonds are expected to increase as inflation eases. Benson Druba reporting for Prime Edition.
Well, we do apologize for the sound technical hitch that we had there. And of course, that is a story by Standard Chartered Bank, where its projection for investments for this year indicated that the money and bond markets are some of the lucrative investment channels, rather, with lucrative yields this year. And that story was filed by Benson Rioba. We move to other news now. Further afield, Netflix will raise prices across a number of countries after adding nearly 19 million subscribers in the final months of 2024. The streaming firm said it will increase subscription costs in the US, Canada, Argentina, and Portugal. Here are the details of these and more in our international business roundup.
In the US, prices will increase across almost all plans, including the standard subscription, with no adverts, which will now cost $17.99 monthly, up from $15.49. Its membership with adverts will also rise by $1 to $7.99. The last time Netflix raised prices in the US was October 2023, when it also lifted costs for some plans in the UK. Netflix announced better-than-expected subscriber numbers, helped by the second series of South Korean drama Squid Games, as well as sports including a boxing match between influencer-turned-fighter Jake Paul and former world heavyweight champion Mike Tyson. Meanwhile, OpenAI is teaming up with Oracle and SoftBank to build data centers equipped to power artificial intelligence, with plans to invest $100 billion immediately. The ChatGPT creator and SoftBank said the joint venture, dubbed Stargate, intends to invest $500 billion over the next 4 years. Flanked by the bosses of the three companies at the White House, U.S. President Donald Trump said the plan, which involves the construction of AI infrastructure such as data centers, is expected to create more than 100,000 jobs. OpenAI has previously called for major investments in infrastructure to support AI and pushed for government support of those plans. Finally, Indonesia will exempt oil and gas exporters from its new rule that all proceeds from natural resource exports be kept onshore for an impact on their cash flows. This comes after the Indonesian government said the new rule would take effect in March this year and apply to every export with a shipping document worth at least $250,000. Currently, exporters are only obliged to retain 30% of total proceeds for a minimum of 3 months, which has already pushed up interest expenses for some exporters. Officials say the move is needed to shore up US dollar supply and help stabilize the rupiah, which has hit a 6-month low.
And that story brings a close to business news this evening. Daniel Wahome is on standby on the other side of the studio to play in the sports arena. My name is Betty Kiptum. Have yourself a good night. Daniel Wahome, take it away.
Thank you very much, Betty. And, you know, in the business world, one of the things that I really want to follow up on is the impact of some of the decisions made by President Trump, especially in the health sector and business sector. And we'll be having that conversation off grid. But let's move on to sport now. And the Kenya Police FC took command of the FKF Premier League standings after they beat Bandari by 3-0 at the Machako Stadium in one of the 3 midweek matches played today. Defending champions Gor Mahia were also back to their winning ways against Sofapaka, who they beat by 2-0.
Marvin Nabuiro scored the opener for Police FC in the 10th minute before Clinton Kinanga made it 2-0 10 minutes later.
Okay, Loro, pasi inapigwa ndefu. Clinton Kinanga!
Bandari tried to reduce the deficit before the breather, but all in vain. The second half saw both teams miss scoring opportunities before policemen decided to seal matters with the third in the 86th minute through Jesse Were. Following that win, Police FC lead the standings on goal difference ahead of Tusker, whom they tie on 33 points. Bandari are 8th on 23 points. In other matches, defending champions Gor Mahia rediscovered their winning ways to beat Sofapaka 2-0 at the same venue as AFC Leopards also won their match against KCB, whom they beat 4-2 at the SportPesa Stadium.
Oh! Mesema imeingia. Imekwenda ndani ya nyavu.
Team Kenya continued their dominance in the ITFC at East Africa Team Championship at the Nairobi Club to qualify for the finals of the under-14 and under-16 boys and girls categories after outstanding performances. Ayush Bandari overcame Uganda's finest Tony Blair in the under-16 semis as his teammate Jeff Okuko beat Abdul Sendoywa in 2 straight sets. Kenya also won the doubles to register a 3-0 win.
Ayush, who beat Blair 6-4, 6-4 last week, completed a double over him today when they met at the court for another round. He was taken to task in the first set by the Ugandan, who wanted to avenge his defeat, but he held on to win 7-5 in the first set. The second set also worked in favour to seal it 6-2 and set an all-Kenyan final affair against Ayan Quadros, who beat Abdul Jabbar 6-love, 6-3 in the second semi-final match.
First it wasn't ideal. I didn't play good. I wasn't feeling my best, but I managed to pull it out at the end. I played much better in the second set. That's what matters.
It was a good game. I fought, tried my level best, although I lost because last time I played with him and then I lost 6-2, 6-2. I'm seeing some achievement this time round, which was 7-5, 6-2.
The Kenyan players were also unstoppable in the boys' double, where the pair of Jeff Okuku and Rehan Bulsrara beat Uganda's Rejab Sebi and Abdul Latif 6-4, 6-2 to sail to the finals, where they will take on Burundi. The Kenyan team has proved its dominance in the ITF CAT East African Zonal Championships since it began last week at the Nairobi club to win 5 out of 6 titles in the first leg.
Tennis is just such a fun sport. Like, it can be an individual sport or a team sport depending how you're playing it. And I just find it so much fun because it's as mental as physical, which a lot of sports aren't.
Hii michezo inatumika kutuendeleza sisi kama vijana. Kwa sababu tunapocheza hapa, tunaendelea kwenda mbele. Unajifunza kufungwa na kushinda.
Now, the 2025 edition of the WRC Safari Rally Kenya will not only serve as the third round of the World Rally Championship, but as Kenya's round of the FIA African Rally Championship. The Equator Rally previously served as the Kenyan round of the ARC Rally before the Safari was reinstated back to the world calendar. The Safari, which will take place from the 20th to the 23rd of March, will therefore mark the opening round of the African Rally Championship. The ARC Equator Rally was a representative round in the FIA Continental Series since 2021. It was discontinued for many years after the Safari was demoted to the ARC status in 2003. When the Safari Rally returned to the WRC in 2020, Kenya revived the Equator Rally to fill the gap left by the historic African Rally event. Additionally, Rally International to Burundi makes its return to the ARC calendar for the third consecutive year after joining the series in 2023. And that's the sport for tonight. And remember, tomorrow, more to come up, and there is a lot to come out as we build up to the weekend. My name is Daniel Wahome. Thank you for being with us. Back to John Jacob Curia.
Thank you, Wahome, for the sports. Nothing much to add. This is our report up on Prime Edition. Thank you very much for keeping us company. My name is John Jacob Curia. Lucy Maura was a sign language interpreter. Have yourself a fantastic night, and God bless you.
Shilingi 1000. Toka kwa hiyo sanduku. Stoki. Oh. Kizongo mkuri. Rudisha hiyo pesa kwa sanduku namba 10.
Ongeza ifike 50.
Kwa nini? Anataka ukule popcorn ukitizama runinga, sawa? 100,000 Kenya Inch TV Smart 1,000 Kenya shillings. Yes.
Nick knows something.